There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people.
Far-right pundit and commentator Charlie Kirk is admitting that many of the MAGA, far-right Republican views are extremist. They're outside of the mainstream of what most Americans believe in, and that the vast majority of people don't agree with people like Charlie Kirk. Kasparian and Cenk Uygur broke this all down. They got into what Charlie Kirk had to say, as well as Matt Walsh, who's another far right winger. Let's check this out.
There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people.
Conservative commentators like Charlie Kirk are having a moment of self-reflection, realizing that the majority of the American people are not, in fact, in favor of some of their far-right policies, including doing away with reproductive rights. And he's not the only conservative experiencing this moment of self-reflection. Even self-proclaimed theocratic fascist Matt Walsh admitted that his beliefs do not align with the will of the American people. And we're gonna get to him in just a moment, but here's some context for the clip that we just showed you of Charlie Kirk. He was responding to a despondent MAGA fan who apparently felt that Trump has abandoned the pro-life, anti-abortion crowd after declaring that abortion is a states' rights issue. Let's watch that full exchange.
There is an email we got here from John, which is, Charlie, I'm not voting for Trump anymore. What is the point if Trump compromises on abortion, even if he has a better chance of winning? Why not offer everyone free school, healthcare, UBI? That would help him win an election, right? So based on what do you think, whatever it takes to win, compromise when you can't govern. Trump has abandoned the pro-life cause, so he doesn't deserve my vote. I have never said you should do whatever it takes to win. I've never said that. I've never alluded to that. However, you want to try to have the most morally clear position that can fit within the popular will of the people so you can get political power. There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people. That is the whole idea of the will of the people and the sovereign. And sometimes the people, they don't want the morally correct and clear position.
Well, maybe the people don't find an all-out ban, a national ban on abortion to be the moral, position on that issue. But, Charlie Kirk feels that he has the moral stance, but is willing to waver on that moral stance if it means that it's going to help his preferred candidate win. And you know what? To be honest, that's what it's like to live in a democracy where you have people with all different types of political beliefs coming together and deciding on who they want to lead them in their country, right? And so I disagree with Charlie Kirk politically, obviously, but I want to give him a little bit of credit for recognizing, hey, we can't have it our way 100% of the time, and there does need to be some sacrifice isn't the right word.
Compromise?
Compromise, that's the right word.
Part of it is nuance, and I was gonna say the same thing, and I wanna come back to that, right? But there's also the parts that are clear. So this is him and Matt Walsh admitting our policies are not popular. And not on little fringe things. Here, I'll give you an example of mine in a second as well. But on really the core of their policies. So abortion has been literally the #1 issue for right-wing voters my entire life. So now all of a sudden, they realize, as we've been telling them all along, 70% of the country is not on their side. And they're like, well, that sucks, because then we'd lose political power. But then how would our rich donors get tax cuts then? So, and that, guys, that's the whole essence of it. They never meant it on abortion. And as Anna and I have showed you on a couple of occasions, in the 1970s, 5 years after Roe v. Wade was decided, it was the first time that Republicans and evangelical preachers said that they were against abortion because they saw that it worked in local elections in animating people voting against Democrats.
They used it as a tool to galvanize voters, but voters have changed considerably since the 1970s.
Yeah, back then it worked with the voters because they're like, oh my God, the Democrats are killing babies, so you have to vote for tax cuts for the rich, and people would fall for that, right? So now it's the exact opposite. People are not falling for it, and in fact, if you try to that nonsense about taking away reproductive rights of women, you're going to lose elections, and that's why Sean Hannity, Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, they're in a cold sweat panic, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to lose elections because we suck and our positions are totally unpopular." I mean,
these are good points by Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian. The problem right now with the Republican Party and with these far-right people like Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh is they talked about, Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur talked about compromise here. There is no compromise. The right wingers, it's almost like they lie awake at night and think, okay, how can we get more and more extreme? And none of this appeals to the majority of the country. They talked about abortion here, but you also have issues like Social Security and Medicare. The right wing is against Social Security and Medicare, and these are incredibly popular programs that the vast majority, they have like 80, 90% approval ratings. No one wants to get rid of Social Security or Medicare. Almost every, except far, far, far right extremists. Almost everyone wants those programs to be strengthened and expanded. The vast majority of Americans do. So Charlie Kirk, at least he's self-aware enough to understand that these stances that they have are unpopular. And basically, you never know with any of these pundits if they actually believe what they're saying or if they're just saying these things to make money. Because a lot of these people are just actors. And Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in that camp.
I mean, they also talk about, Matt Walsh is going to talk about how some of their positions on guns and other immigration, et cetera, are unpopular. These are the core issues that they have. And so we don't have that problem. And I showed in my book, Justice is Coming, almost all of our positions, at least here at TYT, and certainly the progressive economic positions are intensely popular. So I guess in a sense we're lucky because the American people definitely agree with us. Where you get into nuance is when your positions you believe are morally correct, but remember, we all decide together in a democracy what is morally correct.
Right.
Because in the case of abortion, they say Gog and Magog say that this is the morally correct position, so you have to agree. Well, no, the rest of us think the morally correct position is to let women control their own bodies and not to have the government enslave them for 9 months and say you no longer have freedom. I don't think that's a moral position at all. I think it's a deeply immoral position. But I'm going to get to the nuance of the positions that we have that are not popular and how you should deal with that after we hear from Matt Walsh and others.
And then look, one other thing I'll say about abortion rights is when the public is accustomed to having a certain right for 50 straight years, and then that right is taken away from them, that's gonna galvanize voters to retaliate. And that's what the Republican Party experienced during the midterm elections. And you see the Biden administration, the Biden camp, I should say, really looking to use that issue as part of their campaigning so Biden gets reelected. And so I think people like Charlie Kirk, like Matt Walsh, see that tactic, see that strategy from a mile away and are trying to find ways to lessen the blow of Democrats using that abortion issue as part of their campaigning. Now let's pivot over to Matt Walsh, okay? So as we previously mentioned, Matt Walsh made a similar admission just last week. He was responding to Kari Lake's endless flip-flopping on the topic of reproductive rights and abortion after the state Supreme Court in Arizona issued a ruling that would allow a super old 1800s law to come into effect that effectively bans abortion. So let's see how Matt Walsh reacted to that whole situation.
If she did the same thing on immigration or gun control, I don't think those conservatives would be defending her. And guess what? The most right-wing, most conservative position on those topics is also not the mainstream. It's not where most people are. If you're truly conservative on these issues, you most likely take that far. I know I certainly do. You take that principle farther than the mainstream does.
Okay, so Matt Walsh is different from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk seems willing to compromise in order to gain political power, whereas Matt Walsh makes a bizarre argument that is essentially the antithesis of what Charlie Kirk is advocating for. Let's watch.
It's wrong. It's if you care about that sort of thing, it is morally wrong. It's wrong on principle to come out and in support of, well, women have to make choice. Sometimes you have to make the choice to kill your baby. It's just a choice that has to be made. And also, it is politically suicidal. It is not going to work. It is the strategy the Republican establishment has been using for decades. It is not new. This is no different from what John McCain would do, or Mitt Romney, or any of the Bushes, okay? Jeb, George, any of the Georges. Has it been a path to conservative dominance in government at any point in the last 30, 40 years, huh? No.
No compromise. That will ensure Republican dominance in politics.
Yeah.
And great point by Anna Kasparian here. Them going further and further right, the Republican Party, if they followed what guys like Matt Walsh want to do, that's not going to be a winning path for them. Because, like I was saying before, the vast majority of Americans do not agree with these out there far-right stances that they have. Matt Walsh, when it really comes down to it, is just a misogynist. I don't know about Charlie Kirk. I mean, he probably is too. But Matt Walsh has now, maybe he's saying these things for effect. Again, just to make money, because these guys, their viewership is almost entirely made up of young males, and they've conditioned these guys to be incredibly misogynist, or they're just attracting young guys who are misogynist, or both. Who knows? But Matt Walsh said around Valentine's Day that it's not manly for a guy to be excited or want to buy a Valentine's gift for his wife, that he should just pick something up on the way home from work on Valentine's Day and not even think about it. I mean, so what, guys? It's not manly if you love your wife. I mean, these are extremist views that these guys like Matt Walsh in particular, but also Charlie Kirk have. And going that far right is not going to help them win elections. It's looking right now like Donald Trump is going to lose, and a whole lot of these young male viewers and listeners of guys like Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh are going to be more disillusioned than they are already.
Well, look, we're the fairest show in America, so I'm going to give Matt Walsh credit on a couple of things. So I understand what he's saying about that. We say this similar thing with like all the Democrats who pretended to be Republicans and they thought that was a winning strategy. But there's a giant difference between us and Matt Walsh in that regard still, because we told the Democrats, why don't you just stick with the policies that are our policies that are super popular?
Right.
Like Claire McCaskill, why don't you fight for higher minimum wage, which is very popular in Missouri, but she wouldn't do it. And she's like, oh yeah, I agree with the Republicans. We should, cut taxes on the rich and stuff. And that's a losing strategy because you're saying the other side is right. But the part where Walsh is wrong is, yes, but the position you're defending has to be popular, right? So now here's another thing that I'll say that Matt Walsh is right about. That ad that Carrie Lake put out there with the cheesy piano music at the et cetera, she's 100% advocating for a pro-choice position. Trump and her are trying to pretend that pro-choice is now pro-life.
I know.
They're like, now I made the decision to have my babies, but you could make the decision to not have them.
That's
I know that's pro-choice.
That's totally pro-choice.
That's 100% pro-choice.
No, but what makes me so sick about these politicians, Cenk, is they don't stand for anything. They have no principles, no values. The only value they have is their obsession with power. That's the
Anna Kasparian 100% correct about that.
only thing they value, right? Power, power. I'll do anything for power. So like, okay, sure, yes. If you want to give Matt Walsh credit for digging his heels in and saying, these are my values and I'm not going to compromise on them, okay, fine. But politically speaking, you can maintain your values, right? Without immediately flipping to the other side as soon as you experience a little tiny bit of political turbulence.
Yeah, here, I'll show you how I think it's the right way to do it. So just to be clear, Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh agree that their conservative positions are unpopular.
Right.
Where they disagree is Charlie Kirk says, then let's make compromises with what we pretended was our position so we could win the elections, because really we don't care about any of these issues, we just want the tax cuts, right? So whereas Matt Walsh says, to his credit, no, I actually do kind of care about these issues, even though we're gonna get slaughtered on this.
Yeah,
okay?
I think Matt Walsh isn't just about the tax cuts. I think Matt Walsh is genuine in his like very conservative beliefs.
Yeah, for better and
Very, very extreme beliefs, I would say.
for worse, for sure. Yeah. But so what's the right way to handle it? Look, we were on the unpopular side on gay marriage for for a long time on the Young Turks, right? So we were in the minority for at least a decade as we argued in favor of complete rights for LGBTQ community and for gay marriage. And so what did we do? Did we say, well, okay, let's go along with the Democrats? And remember back then, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, etc., Hillary Clinton, they were all against gay marriage. They never meant that. They were lying the whole time, but they thought it was politically expedient to throw some members of the community under the bus. So you didn't necessarily have to run on that issue, but what you had to do was convince your fellow Americans. And that's what we did here. And so that's what a lot of the progressive movement did, and we won. And now over 70% of Americans believe that gay marriage is the moral position and that of course they should have the same rights as us. But when you're not winning, it doesn't mean that you give up, and it doesn't mean that that's the number one thing that you feature in your campaign. Mm-hmm. It means that you fight for it to the best of your abilities, and you do the things that are popular while you convince people about the things that you have not won on yet. And I think gay marriage is a perfect example.
I know. I don't think they can win on banning abortion.
I know, so I want them to try for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, good.
Anna Kasparian is right about this. Now, this is where I would push back on Cenk Uygur a little bit about the being on the different sides of the issues. Now, like Cenk Uygur says, when you talk about the economic policies, things like Medicare for all, expanding Social Security, tuition-free college, raising taxes on the super rich and corporations. These are all popular among the American people. The majority of people agree with that. The problem is the big money people are against those things. They want their tax cuts. They don't want people to be able to go to college and it just be covered by their tax dollars. They want to be able to make money off of this. They want to privatize Social Security. They don't want people to, Americans to have the type of healthcare that the rest of the industrialized world has. So Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh align with the money people, and for right now, the winning side on those. A lot of these social issues, the left is able to win on those popular issues because there's not the money against them. There's not really, every corporation isn't against gay marriage. They want to sell Coke or Ford or whatever. They want to sell their products to gay people too. So they're not going to oppose things like gay marriage and gay rights and even abortion. But these other things like tax cuts, they're going to fight, that are popular, or these other things like raising taxes on the rich and corporations that are popular among the American people, they're going to fight against those. So Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh, their side can still win elections on those issues. They're probably not going to win as time continues on, these social issues like gay marriage and abortion, they're not going to be able to win on those, but they can win on the economic issues. And I think Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks have been fighting a losing battle for a long time on those. It doesn't look like we're going to have Medicare for all anytime soon. So they're going to keep fighting for it. And those are popular policies, but the money people don't want that to happen. The big money people don't want that to happen. So what do you think? Are Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur correct in their critique of Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh here? Do you agree with them? Or do you think Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk are correct in these, what to most people are extremist views? Do you think that any of these people, Anna Kasparian, Cenk Uygur, Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, are they sincere in these views, or are they just saying these things to make money? I don't know, because I don't know any of these people personally, so I don't know. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. This channel is growing really fast, but I want it to continue growing. And your likes and subscribes help that. This is Chris on Culture. I'll see you in the next one.